you are a Cancer and you find yourself staying here a little longer than expected, it may not be curiosity at all. It may be a familiar feeling stirring inside you. A feeling shaped by too many years, by caring for too many people, by always being the place others lean on when they feel tired, while so few ever stop to ask, "Are you doing okay?" Cancer is not tired because of hard work. Cancer is tired because you've had to be strong for everyone else. Tired from holding the emotions of an entire room. Tired from learning how to stay quiet, then quietly tending to wounds that never had a name. If lately you've felt drained without knowing why, if your chest feels heavier, if old memories seem to surface more often than before, and one question keeps echoing in your mind: how much longer can I keep holding myself together? Then perhaps this message didn't find you by accident, because what's about to unfold isn't about pushing harder or proving your strength one more time. It's about something you've been carrying for far too long, and why the moment has finally come to gently let it go. 2026 does not arrive with praise. It doesn't stand at the door and tell you that you've done enough. It enters quietly, like a silent tide rising inside a Cancer's heart, stirring the very places you once believed were safest. The first feeling isn't hope, it's unease. An unease that's hard to name, as if everything you've leaned on for years has begun to tremble, not collapsing all at once, but shifting just enough to make you realize you can't keep standing the same way anymore. Cancer has always known how to build a shell, not to shut the world out, but to protect a heart that is soft and deep and easily touched. Over time, that shell grew thicker, layered with responsibility, with unspoken promises, with the role of emotional anchor for family, for relationships, for everyone who came to you when they were breaking inside. You've been there for so long that you've forgotten what it feels like to step fully into the light. And then 2026 arrives, not with a gentle knock, but with small fractures forming in that familiar shell. Fear begins to surface, not loud fear, but the quiet kind, the kind that slips into your sleep, into the silent moments of the day. Fear that without the shell, you'll be exposed. Fear that if you can't hold everything together the way you used to, you'll lose what you've spent a lifetime holding on to. But there's a truth few ever say to Cancer. That shell once saved you, but it also kept you in place. What began as safety slowly turned into habit, and habit, over time, became limitation. The cracks aren't here to weaken you. They appear at the exact moment you are finally mature enough to take responsibility for your own life. Through those openings, light begins to enter. At first, it stings your eyes. You've been used to the shade for so long, but the longer you stay still, the more you realize this light doesn't burn, it warms. It reveals parts of you once avoided looking at directly, desires you pressed down, questions you set aside, dreams you postponed because you believed others needed you more. 2026 carries a message that's unmistakably clear, even without words. You are no longer meant to live only as a place of shelter for others. You're being invited to step forward, to stand on your own feet, and to experience the world, not through obligation, but through true presence. And that unsettles Cancer. Because without the familiar roles, you're left face to face with yourself. No one to rescue, no one to carry for, just you and the very real question of where you want your life to go. This moment isn't comfortable. It feels like standing at the edge between land and sea, after the water has pulled back, revealing what's been hidden for years. You see sharp stones and glimmering gems, and for the first time in a long while, you understand something deeply. You weren't born just to endure. You were born to feel, to choose, to grow in a way that belongs to you. The tighter you cling to the old shell, the clearer the cracks become. But when you loosen your grip, when you allow yourself to stop being strong every moment, something unexpected happens. Your breath deepens, your heart feels lighter. The fears don't disappear instantly, but they no longer control you. You begin to see that stepping forward doesn't mean losing your gentleness. It simply means bringing that gentleness into the world in a more grounded, freer way. And right here, When the shell stops being a hiding place and becomes a choice, another door begins to open. Slowly, quietly, without drama. Just a clear feeling in your chest that it's time to look at what you've been carrying all these years. The memories, the attachments, the things once meant to protect you that have quietly become weight, and to ask, with honesty, whether they still truly belong with you. Cancer is given a gift that is rare and heavy at the same time: emotional memory. You don't just remember what happened, you remember how it felt, the tone of a voice, a certain look in someone's eyes, the air in the room, your own heartbeat, the moment everything fell apart. For you, memories don't stay behind. They live with you. They walk beside you. They sit down next to you in your quietest moments. For a long time, you believed holding on to painful memories was a form of protection. If you remembered clearly enough, deeply enough, you wouldn't repeat the same mistakes. If the pain stayed close, no one would ever hurt you that way again. It made sense. And for a while, that strategy helped you survive. It kept you alert. It helped you recognize danger before others ever noticed it. But what cancer rarely realizes is that memory doesn't only keep you safe, it also keeps you in place. 2026 marks the moment when the past refuses to stay quietly behind you. It begins to grow heavier. Unfinished relationships, words that were never spoken, family resentments you carried in silence, believing silence was the price of peace, choices you didn't make, paths you were afraid to walk. They stack on top of each other, like old waves that never fully dissolved before new ones crashed down. And you carry them, day after day, until you forget what it feels like to walk without weight. There is a blunt truth that 2026 asks cancer to face. Revisiting the past no longer makes you stronger. It is draining your life force. Each time you return to an old memory, you're not just looking at it, you're reliving it. Your body reacts as if it's happening right now. Your chest tightens, your breath becomes shallow, and then you wonder why you feel exhausted, even when you haven't done anything at all. This year, life doesn't offer a middle ground. You can't carry the past and step into something new at the same time. The two coexist. Not because you are weak, but because if your boat is going to travel farther, it has to become lighter. Unfinished connections demand your honesty. Family resentment can no longer hide behind duty or obligation. The endless what-ifs stop feeling safe and start asking a harder question. What are you postponing right now? Letting go doesn't mean denying what happened. It doesn't erase memory. It simply changes its position in your life. Instead of sitting in the driver's seat, those memories are gently moved to the back. You still remember, but they no longer decide the direction. And this is what frightens cancer the most. Because when the past no longer leads, you have to trust the present. And trusting the present requires a different kind of courage. Deep inside, you begin to feel the shift. When old memories are set down, even slightly, they create space. At first, that space feels unsettling. But in the quiet, you hear something that was once drowned out. Your true voice. Not the voice of obligation, not the voice of fear. A small voice, but unmistakably clear, reminding you that your life is not over. It's simply waiting for you to be gentler with yourself. And when the past is no longer what you cling to in order to stand upright, something else begins to surface. A part of you that learned to hold on to everything out of fear of loss. A part that learned to love by giving too much of yourself away. That part isn't wrong, it's just tired. And it's quietly whispering that it may be time to learn a different way to love. A way that isn't built on weight. A way that doesn't require pain to prove your worth. This current carries you farther than you expect. It leads you toward a deeper question. Not about what happened, but about how you relate to others and to yourself. How much you give out of genuine love, and how much out of fear of being left behind. And from here, another layer of the story begins to open. Quietly, honestly, touching the way you care, the way you attach, and the way you hold on to those you love in ways that may finally be ready to be seen more clearly. When you set the past down, even for a brief moment, something very subtle begins to happen. Not in your thoughts, but in your body. Cancer often believes everything lives in the heart and in memory, but 2026 gently reveals another truth. The body always knows before the mind. It has carried you for many years already, and now it begins to speak. Each time you return to an old memory, not to learn from it, but to stay inside it, your body responds immediately. Your shoulders grow heavier, your chest tightens, your breath shortens, almost without you noticing. Your stomach contracts, just slightly. No alarms go off, no warning lights flash, just a quiet sense that something no longer feels right. What was once called nostalgia now feels exhausting. Not because the memory is wrong, but because your body no longer wants to live there. Cancer has always relied on feeling to navigate life, but your intuition has never lived in the past. It is strongest in the present moment. When you are fully here, you sense things others miss. The rhythm of people, the energy in a space, small signals that tell you what is approaching and what is ready to leave. When you keep looking back for too long, that sensitivity fades, not because you are weak, but because you are facing the wrong direction. In 2026, this becomes clearer than ever. Your body no longer agrees to live through memory alone. It invites you back into the feeling of breathing, of standing, of being here. And in that presence, you begin to see how many opportunities you missed simply because your mind was stuck in what could never be changed. Quiet opportunities, not flashy, not instantly impressive, but real, and deeply aligned with who you are now. Some doors only open when you look straight ahead. Some people only appear when you stop comparing them to old versions of others. And some choices only become clear when you allow yourself to feel life through your body instead of through fear stored in memory. The more you listen to these small signals, the more naturally you feel guided, without force, without strain. The discomfort you feel when you cling to nostalgia is not a sign of loss. It is a gentle reminder that you are growing, that certain lessons have completed their work. You no longer need to relive pain to prove that you loved, that you sacrificed, that you tried. Those truths already live inside you. They do not need to be carried like heavy badges anymore. As you begin to trust the wisdom of your body, you learn how to stop at the right moment. To stop before exhaustion. To stop before hurting yourself again. To stop and listen to a very different voice. Not one that pushes, not one that blames. Just a voice that says you are allowed to live more lightly. You are allowed to choose the present over the past. And you are allowed to believe that what is good for you does not exist only behind you. In this presence, a quiet shift takes place. You begin to realize that intuition does more than protect you from danger. It helps you recognize where you belong. It leads you toward spaces that do not demand you tighten yourself, toward relationships that do not require sacrifice to survive, toward decisions that bring peace instead of familiar tension. And when your body no longer has to fight memory, when it is allowed to soften into the present, another question arises naturally. Not about what happened, but about how you have learned to love and attach, how much you hold on to others through care, where the line lies between love and control. That question does not rush you. It simply waits until you are ready to listen in a deeper breath, where heart and body begin speaking the same language. And when your heart and your body begin speaking the same language, you suddenly recognize something that's hard to name, yet painfully familiar. For many years, you learned how to stay in other people's lives through care. You didn't enter with a loud voice or obvious authority. You entered quietly, by remembering what they liked, what they feared, what they needed, by being the first to reach out whenever someone began to lose their balance. At first, this was pure love, but over time, the boundaries blurred. Love slowly picked up a condition so subtle you barely noticed it yourself. Somewhere deep inside, a quiet belief took shape. If I'm important enough in their life, they won't leave. If I'm needed enough, I'll be kept. So you gave more than was necessary. You carried burdens that were never meant to be yours. You stayed silent when you should have spoken. You sacrificed a little more and then a little more again. Not because you were weak, but because you were afraid of being left alone. Cancer doesn't control through commands. You control through gentleness. By making others feel they owe you something, even when no one says it out loud. through long silences where you pull back, waiting for the other person to notice your sacrifice and return. For a long time, this worked. People were afraid to lose you, afraid to disappoint you, afraid of the emptiness you might leave behind, and you mistook that fear for love. But in 2026, this begins to change, clearly and unmistakably. The people around you no longer respond the same way. Your silence no longer unsettles them. Your sacrifices are no longer met with the familiar gratitude. The first feeling that rises is panic, a very primal fear, as if the ground beneath your feet is giving way. If they don't need me anymore, who am I? If I'm no longer the rescuer, what do I have left? This moment is difficult, but it doesn't arrive to punish you. It arrives to free you. Because for the first time, you are face to face with a simple, clear truth. You do not need to be needed to have value. You do not need to exhaust yourself to be loved. And you do not need to sacrifice yourself completely to keep anyone from leaving. When that unspoken contract ends, you feel empty. But inside that emptiness, a new space opens. A space where you no longer have to guess what others need. A space where you finally begin asking what you need. A question you may not have dared to touch for a very long time. Cancer's true power is not found in holding others through emotion. It lies in the ability to remain steady inside your own feelings without placing them on anyone else. When you stop using sacrifice as control, you begin to give from freedom. And what remains at that point is real. Not because someone needs you, but because they choose you. This shift is quiet. It unfolds in very small moments, when you no longer rush to help unless you're asked, when you allow others to fail without stepping in to fix it, when you speak your truth without pairing it with punishing silence. Each of these moments feels shaky at first, but then you notice something. Your breathing becomes easier. Your chest feels lighter. Your heart no longer has to strain to hold everything together. In that lightness, you begin seeing your relationships differently, not in terms of who needs whom more, but who can stand beside whom as equals. Care is no longer a tool to hold on. It becomes a choice made from fullness. As you stop controlling through sacrifice, you learn how to set boundaries without guilt. You understand that love does not mean carrying everything, and that sometimes stepping back is not abandonment, but respect for both sides. In this very quiet transformation, another version of you begins to appear. No longer the one always standing behind, collecting the broken pieces, but someone who stands upright, calm, grounded, with nothing left to prove. And from that place, you begin to realize something even deeper. When you stop managing others through emotion, you are also learning how to govern yourself. A kind of self-mastery that doesn't come from hardness, but from inner maturity. And this feeling, still unfamiliar, is guiding you toward a very different state. A state where you no longer search for safety outside yourself, but begin to touch a quiet source of strength slowly forming within. And as that quiet strength begins to take shape inside you, the way you look at the word family slowly starts to change. Not in a rebellious way, not through cutting ties or dramatic endings, but through clarity. Cancer is raised on the idea of roots, a place you must return to, a place you must protect at all costs. You learned very early that family was sacred, the foundation, something that was never supposed to move. And so, for a long time, you tried to keep that foundation standing, even when it had already begun to crack from the inside. There are relationships that carry the name family, yet cause your body to shrink the moment you enter the room. There are gatherings that leave you drained instead of warm. There are words that seem harmless, but repeated over time, quietly erode your confidence year after year. You learned how to endure, because you believed endurance was the cost of belonging. You told yourself you were too sensitive, that you should be more understanding, that blood ties are not something you get to choose. But 2026 does not allow you to keep ignoring these signals, not through a dramatic event, but through something much clearer. Your body can no longer tolerate returns that leave your chest heavy. Your intuition refuses to stay silent around relationships that make you feel smaller. And in that awareness, you begin to see something honestly. Roots do not always nourish. Sometimes they keep you anchored in an environment that no longer fits the person you are becoming. Distance begins to appear, sometimes physical, sometimes emotional. You no longer share everything the way you once did. You stop over-explaining. You stop trying to make everyone comfortable. At first, this brings guilt, because Cancer is wired to care, to preserve, to hold things together. But the more you step back, the more real the relief becomes, as if, for the first time, you are allowed to breathe in your own rhythm. This clearing is not here to erase family from your life. It arrives to redefine it. Family is no longer limited to those who share your blood. Family becomes those who see your sensitivity and do not treat it as a weakness. Those who do not ask you to stay quiet to keep the peace. Those who allow you to be yourself without shrinking to fit their expectations. You begin to understand that respect sometimes matters more than closeness, that love does not always require endurance, and that stepping away from toxic bonds does not make you ungrateful. It simply means you have grown enough to protect your inner life. This isn't easy. There are days you still wonder if you're being selfish, but each time you return to the calm that is slowly forming inside you, that question grows quieter. In this new space, other connections begin to appear, quietly, without labels. People who make you feel heard without explanation, cared for without sacrifice, present without tension. For the first time in a long while, you experience what it feels like to be supported, instead of always being the one who supports. This shift steadies you. You no longer rely on family approval to define your worth. You no longer fear saying no. You learn that holding on to what hurts you is not loyalty, and letting go of what no longer fits is not betrayal. It is a quiet act of self-respect. As old ties slowly loosen, you realize you are walking lighter. Not because life has become simpler, but because you are no longer carrying what was never yours to hold. And in that lightness, something else becomes clear. The sense of safety you once searched for outside yourself is beginning to shift. It no longer lives in the stability of old family structures. It is forming inside you, through your ability to stand on your own, through trusting what you feel. And this new sense of safety is quietly guiding you toward a different way of living. A way where you no longer store up out of fear, but begin to receive according to your own natural rhythm. And when your sense of safety no longer has to be borrowed from old structures, your relationship with money begins to change, quietly. Cancer learned early how to save from fear. Fear of not having enough. Fear of losing what you've built. Fear that one day there might be nothing left to lean on. You worked hard. You endured more than necessary. You gathered little by little, as if building a dam against a coming flood. Yet deep inside, the worry never fully left. Because when money is created through tension, it always carries tension with it. 2026 does not ask you to push harder. It invites you to listen more deeply. You begin to realize that your best financial decisions never came from dry analysis alone. They came from a clear feeling inside, a quiet inner knowing, a subtle yes in your chest, a timely pause when something sounded too perfect to be true. Your intuition, once tuned to people, now becomes sensitive to flow. The flow of opportunity, the flow of real value. You walk into a room and sense who is speaking honestly and who is performing. You look at a project and know whether it has substance, even before the numbers say anything. You hear an offer and your body responds before logic steps in. Before, you doubted this. You thought you were too emotional, but 2026 teaches you something different. Emotion is not the enemy of money. When placed correctly, it becomes the most precise compass you have. This shift stops you from chasing rigid ideas of security. You no longer cling to income sources that exhaust you simply because they feel familiar. You begin searching for resonance, places where work does not require you to shrink, where the value you bring is seen and respected, where you don't have to perform strength just to survive. When you step into spaces like this, money arrives differently, not rushed, not tense, but steady and rhythmic. You notice that when you are in the right place, your energy no longer leaks. You don't have to compensate with time or force. Your sincerity becomes an asset. Your sensitivity becomes an advantage. Your ability to read what isn't spoken becomes a guiding tool. And most importantly, you stop trying to prove your worth through endurance. You let your value speak through how you show up. Some decisions you make quickly, surprising others, but for you, they've been forming for a long time. You walk away from a partnership that looks safe on paper. You say no to a familiar path, even though it promises stability. You choose a new direction because it feels aligned, even when no one around you understands. Each time you do this, your body feels lighter, less tight, less restless. Only a quiet trust remains. Money begins to flow when you stop chasing it through fear. It flows when you stop saving from scarcity and begin receiving from worth. When you allow yourself to be compensated for the true value you offer. When you stop shrinking your intuition to fit someone else's standards. This flow isn't loud, but it's durable. It nourishes you instead of draining you. Within this new stability, you realize something essential. Wealth isn't just a number. It's the feeling of waking up without heaviness in your chest. The ability to choose without being bound by old fear. The confidence of trusting yourself when decisions need to be made. And when money is no longer where you seek safety, it becomes neutral energy. Something you use to build, to care, to expand, not to fill a hidden void. The more you trust your intuition, the more naturally you move in rhythm. And when you move in rhythm, life begins to respond in its own way, softly, clearly, leading you toward a very different sense of yourself, that you are not merely surviving, you are standing steady. And from that steady ground, a new image of who you are by the end of this year slowly comes into view. Quieter, deeper, and no longer afraid of the vastness within you. And as the year slowly comes to a close, you realize you no longer search for shelter the way you once did. Not because the world has grown calmer, but because something inside you has grown wide enough to hold the movement of it all. Cancer once learned to retreat when uncertainty appeared, a natural reflex of a sensitive soul. But now, you no longer need to hide beneath any rock. You stand still within the current, and you can feel the depth of who you've become. A new kind of calm begins to surface, quiet, unannounced, with nothing to prove. You begin saying no without rehearsing long explanations. Not because you become cold, but because you understand that boundaries are a form of self-respect. You no longer feel guilty for choosing yourself. You no longer tremble at the thought of disappointing others, because you've learned something essential. Trying to please everyone is also a quiet way of abandoning yourself. Your sensitivity hasn't disappeared. It has simply changed roles. Before, it left you exposed. Now, it functions as a refined system of perception. You read the atmosphere, you sense what goes unspoken, you feel the truth beneath words. But unlike before, you no longer allow every signal to flood through you. You choose, you allow, you decide. The shell that once served as a hiding place is no longer a prison. It has become a flexible form of protection. You carry it with you without being trapped inside it. You know when to open your heart, when to create distance, when to be gentle, when to stand firm. This adaptability earns you respect, not because you force strength, but because you are clear about your worth. By the end of 2026, if you look back, you'll see just how far you've come, not through frantic effort, but through a deep internal shift. You no longer define yourself by the role of the one who sacrifices, the one who keeps the peace, the one who endures. You define yourself through presence, through the way you enter a space and keep your breath steady, through the way you love without losing yourself. Some relationships have fallen away, some old structures have dissolved, and in their place, a strange sense of openness appears, as if you're standing before vast water, no longer afraid of its depth. You understand now that you don't need to control every wave. You are the ocean. Waves come and go, currents shift, and still you remain, grounded, compassionate, strong enough to feel deeply without being pulled under by your own emotions. You begin choosing life according to your own rhythm. No more comparison, no more chasing, No more trying to prove that you deserve love or abundance. You already know you do. That certainty spreads into every part of your life, in how you work, in how you connect, in how you remain silent when needed, and speak when the moment arrives. You may still cry, but these are no longer tears that drown you. They come to cleanse, to release, to remind you that emotion is living water, not a cage. You allow yourself to feel without fear of being submerged. And as you reach the end of this journey, you no longer ask who you need to become. You simply are. A Cancer who has moved through fear, through blind attachment, through years of holding yourself together just to survive. And now you stand there, quiet, yet powerful, without spotlights, without applause. Knowing only this, you have returned to your true nature, wide, deep, calm, and generous enough to hold the whole world without losing yourself.